Hi there. I got a comment on my video, Lyndon LaRouche is an idiot, and I think it's quite comical, so I thought I'd just look it up, read it. He says it's about mammals, and of course, you know, everybody, all humans are mammals. What defines a mammal is whether you're breastfed or supposed to be breastfed when you're just born. And mammalian protuberances is mama is just the Latin word for tit, for breast, for boob. So if you don't want to be a mammal, then you have to go for women without boobs or something like that. I'm not sure what you could mean by it, but he says, well, I'm not a mammal, even if the biology teacher said so. I don't accept that crap. I'm a human being. Well, there's several things wrong with that. First of all, you don't get to choose. It's simply, if you want to use the word mammal, you have to accept the meaning of it. If you don't want to talk about it, then don't talk about mammals. You cannot say I'm not a mammal, because you didn't decide that. It's decided by somebody that says, well, let's divide all the creatures of the earth in different strata, or different taxa, as they call it, taxonomy. And I call animals that do this, like reptiles that lay eggs, I call them reptiles. And I call animals that have pouches, I call them marsupials. And I call animals with tits, or nipples at least, that breastfeed their young, I call them mammals. Sorry, it happened before you came along. But I think that's just typical, and of course it's just funny, because this is one of the few times that I get real kind of accusations. I'm a Jewish, Anglo, Dutch, hypocrite, pedophile, etc. and I'm disgusting. That's all fine. I don't have anything to say to that. But it does show something that, you know, some people think they have a choice about what they believe. You have a choice, but you know, you have to be consequent then. So if you believe that biology is crap and that humans are not animals, then you have to deny everything that's based on that. Everything that people know and the skills they develop that's based on that, like medicine, or at least part of medicine. So if you have children and you don't have, you know, your wife is somewhere else and you can breastfeed them, then somebody says, no, you're not a mammal. You said you're not a mammal, so you're not going to get any milk. Why do you want any milk for your children? That's of course cruel, and I would never support it. But there's so many people that say, well, it's very easy to believe God exists and the world was created in 7 days and evolution is crap. Well, that's fine, but you have to bear the consequences then. So you cannot basically go to a hospital if you deny science. You cannot. You cannot fly a plane or sit in a plane and enjoy the comfort of a plane, or for that matter do anything to do with electricity if you don't want to have any respect for science. I don't mean like the grey man in coats. Basically the knowledge that is collected in science is very fundamentally, what people, I think, usually don't get is that science is about survival. So if you want to, let's say, if you want to be on a ship and you want to build a ship and you build it out of stone, like a stone slab, and you say, okay, I'm gonna sail the seas now with my stone slab. It won't work, because you can weigh stone, you know it's, let's say, heavier than water. It will sink. That is science. So if you don't want to acknowledge that, then you're gonna, well, oxygen levels are dropping. That's not a problem. I don't need oxygen. I'm a human being. No, when it's too low, you suffocate, you die. Simply it. So you can't burn, you can't close your room, all your windows, and start a fire in your room. After a while you suffocate. It's a fact. And you can calculate exactly when. That's science. And so if you want, let's say, if you want to believe that there's this choice, freedom of choice, you are more or less an idiot, of course, I would say. And then certainly I would say, don't try to tell anybody else that they should shut up. You know, if you don't know how a car works, you shouldn't be trying to drive. If you don't know how society is run, you shouldn't be trying to govern. If you, it's like, maybe it's a little bit unusual or something to talk about this, but it's just so disgusting, because we're constantly bombarded by idiots that say, well, climate change is not sure, it's not certain, you know. And these people never did anything to really truly understand it, because if they knew, if they did, they knew they would, first of all, they would know they were certainly not alone. Second of all, they would go to people that were already trying to find out and ask them to teach them how to find out, because it's not easy. And then once they found out about climate change and pollution and the effects of carbon dioxide and the effect of Roundup insecticides and the effect of nuclear power and etc. etc. Once they knew, they would shut up. They would say, okay, shit, climate change. My God, you know. Yesterday I wrote another little. It's one article basically that says, well, climate change will cause earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. So it's quite logical that climate change is causing the earthquakes and volcanic eruptions that we're seeing right now, the uptick that Dutch Incense is talking about. And I made a calculation, because I can make calculations. You might say, oh, nerd. If you want to imagine how much weight is removed from the poles, you have to imagine a cube of water from memory now, maybe I'll just check, but it's 4 by 4 by 4 kilometers. So it's a cube of 4 by 4 by 4 kilometers of water that has already, so is not going to be, but has already distributed from the poles over the oceans. And that weighs an immense amount of weight. It is 10 to the 11th kilos. It's a massive amount of weight. That has been removed from the poles and has distributed over the oceans. How do I know that? Well, ocean sea levels have risen 17 centimeters in the last century. And you can exactly calculate how big the oceans are. You can look it up. You can calculate the volume. Then you know the weight, because a liter of water weighs around a kilo, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, but roughly. So you know that it is. Do you think that it's, if you put, and we have had, you get tectonic effects even from a glacier melting. You get tectonic effects. That's also a lot of volume, of course. Glaciers can be 100 meters high and hundreds of meters long, but that something is going to move underneath it, because you're on the Earth's crust that's floating on lava. These plates are not shifting because it's like a Rubik's cube or something. No, it's like you're on the surface. So if you understand what these people say, then you can correlate that to climate change, and then you can be an idiot and say, well, I don't believe it. It's not possible. How can God's earth be blah blah blah, end times, Nibiru, all that bullshit. But you don't know what to do if you do that. You just be a panicking animal. And there's a very good use for, and of course, that's not a coincidence that I say panicking animal, because it was Lippmann that says, well, we have to treat the public as a bewildered herd that we can basically keep running, and as long as it's running, it won't have any basis, and we can tell it everything, and we can govern them like that, and we should treat people like idiots, and that's an American invention. Europe, we don't think like that, more or less. Of course, there are politicians that try very hard, but they have a hard time. You have to have real problems. So, for instance, we have Dutch PV Wilders. He rose to power with his nonsense about Muslim belief being absolutely backward, and of course, you know, it's very good to point out that there's cruelty towards women. And I recently saw that there was an Egyptian television series where basically a man was beating his wife, which is normal. If you don't show that, then these people think, oh, it's not a real man. Not very good advertisement for your country. But so if you want to be the bewildered herd, you have to realize that you're going to be moved to the slaughterhouse. If you want to find an escape, if you want to find common ground, you have to look for it yourself. And my background is that I was really allowed to explore a lot when I was young. So I had a nice neighborhood. So. And I guess many people grow up like that, and they find out things for themselves. And then they know that they can trust themselves to find out things and know that they're true. And they actually, they hate, me personally, I hate to be told how things are. But there's people also that are brought up, raised in a very secure environment where they are always told what to believe. And they think it's socially acceptable, and they are, to simply listen to other people. You have to know that if you do that, you're in the hands and under the control and in the protection and dependent on these people that tell you whether. So if people tell you that don't worry about climate change, let's just drive your SUV a couple of years, and you don't realize that those people are making money and having a very good life for themselves, and that's the reason why they tell you that, but you think, okay, they're the same type of kind-minded, benign people like my parents, then there's a word for that. You're naive. You're gullible. And you live a very unsafe life because you don't know what your life depends on. And I think Lyndon LaRouche is interesting, but I think if you make a video that children will watch and that is ironic or cynical, but it's not explained that way, and there's a whole website that explains the same point, then people might go for it, and they might become very depressed. And there's a nice thing about depressed people is that they don't move around that much. They don't explore. They don't like to do that. People that are afraid and depressed and pessimistic, they're less mobile, so they're less likely to find out that they're pessimistic for the wrong reasons. And that's a very good way to capture your audience. So if you already have Lyndon LaRouche is addressing older people that have already a lot of trouble, medical problems, no protection whatsoever, being basically hunted down by speculators in their life insurances. And he makes them a little bit less motivated, they will do less and they're less hopeful. And it's disgusting. That's disgusting. This guy says, well, what I'm saying is disgusting. Even my accent is disgusting and indicative of a Jewish Anglo-Dutch political allegiance, and I'm not well informed. I beg to differ, and I'll be honest, and this is the last thing I'll say because again this is a very long video, but intellectual or smart people or well-informed, educated people can be tricked. It's not the argument usually that they are accepting, it's the superiority or the authority of the person that's saying it. And that's the big risk in our society, in Dutch society. We are completely run by professors that come out because they want a new house or a bigger car with the biggest nonsense, and then we go for it, or the majority of us go for it. Plus we are very easily distracted and lured by innovation, the concept of it. We think that it's always superior, while that's the biggest lie in history. Innovation isn't, it's more efficient, makes you earn more as a factory, sure, and of course there's lots of medical innovations that are useful, but it's not per definition an improvement. It's simply somebody that grabs a little bit of market by saying my invention is better because it's new and it's innovative. If you take very old inventions and you implement them, like for instance I was talking about the vanadium flow battery, that is still considered an innovation, which it of course is not, because it's an invention from 1987. But thanks for listening. I hope this was interesting.